For as long as I can remember, I have suffered with asthma. But other than working alongside my family doctor to create a trial and error plan towards living with the condition, I have never had any thorough testing, nor have I had the chance to sit down with a specialist. But that is all about to change. Because today I am meeting up with Dr. John Dickinson. Dr. John is the head of the Exercise Respiratory Clinic here at the University of Kent. He's going to be putting my lungs through the paces, dispelling a few myths about asthma, and educating us all on just why asthma is so prevalent amongst endurance athletes.
Even though exercise is a trigger for 90% of people with asthma, actually exercising is really beneficial because obviously it keeps the rest of the body really healthy and fit.
Cycling has received a lot of attention for the use of asthma medication over the years. There have been high-profile cases of the sport's top athletes either openly using medication to treat their condition, or worse, returning adverse analytical findings at doping controls. Today, with the help from Dr. John Dickinson, we aim to shed light on this. But first, what actually is asthma?
Basically, asthma is what we call an airway obstructive disease, and what that means is it's harder to breathe air out when you experience asthma. It's a chronic airway disease, but it doesn't mean that your airways are always obstructed. So it doesn't mean someone with asthma doesn't always experience difficulty in breathing out. It's only when they come in contact with specific triggers. Difficulty with people with asthma is some people have asthma triggered off by interaction with pet allergy, with pet hairs and things. Others it's pollen, others it's pollution, and some people it can only be breathing really hard and fast when they're exercising. So asthma is not the same for everybody, and it's almost a blanket term for very similar different types of conditions.
Does everyone with asthma know that they have it?
So asthma can sometimes go undiagnosed. So a lot of individuals might experience difficulty in breathing, and it might be when they're in the pollen season, or it might be when they exercise. And sometimes people will just find coping mechanisms to deal with it. So a lot of the time they'll do a test like you've done today, and they will say, finish the test, oh, it just feels like I've done a training session. And then we measure their lung function, and lung function dropped 40%. And they'll look at, and then we give them an inhaler and it improves again. And actually what they were experiencing was a constriction, but they've just purely put down that tight chest and being a bit short of breath down to working really hard. And so it's trying to find out whether athletes can differentiate between actually what it should feel like after exercise to actually maybe it's an abnormal response to their lungs.
Should someone with asthma still exercise, and what are the risks?
Yeah, so exercise for asthma is really good. So even though exercise is a trigger for 90% of people with asthma, actually exercising is really beneficial because obviously it keeps the rest of the body really healthy and fit. As long as somebody is using their inhalers appropriately to stop the asthma being triggered off, the benefits of exercise are going to be improved fitness. You're going to improve your breathing control, so it means that when you do experience an asthma response, you're probably better set up to cope with an asthma attack. And so therefore, by exercising, you're going to probably reduce the use of your emergency inhalers, and you're going to reduce the impact of your asthma on the NHS because you're going to be going to see the doctor less. And so therefore, it's really beneficial for people with asthma to exercise.
Why is asthma so prevalent in endurance athletes?
So asthma is prevalent in endurance athletes. If you take the general population, the prevalence of the UK is around about 9% of people have asthma in the UK. If you look at the British Olympic team, the prevalence of asthma-related issues in the British Olympic team is around about 20 to 25%, depending on the year. In endurance athletes, it's slightly higher than that, and it can range from around about 20% in some sports through all the way up to 70% in sports such as swimming. And the reason for it is partly because of the ventilation rates that endurance athletes have to sustain. So if you think about when you're at rest, you breathe most of the air through your nose. That humidifies and warms the air, so that it protects the lower airways from having to do that job. When you're exercising, you're breathing through your mouth. And so that means that the lower airway has to do the warming and humidifying. That subjects it to having to, increases the risk of the airways becoming dehydrated, and that dehydration is what causes the inflammatory processes, which causes the muscle constriction. Now, if you're an endurance athlete, you're going to be exercising at high ventilation rates for a prolonged period of time. So you're subjecting that lower airway to all of those sort of unconditioned air. The other reason is that potentially endurance athletes spend more time in provocative environments. So if you're a road cyclist, you're on the road with all the car pollutants. Basically, the short answer is that endurance athletes are more likely to experience asthma than other athletes because of the time they spend at high ventilation rates and also the environments they come in touch with.
To find out what is going on, Dr. John has 3 tests. Firstly, exhaled nitrous oxide test, then a max inhalation exhalation test, and finally 6 minutes of induced max effort breathing. Right, Dr. John, you've sat me down and I'm feeling quite nervous because I know I'm about to go through a series of tests. First up is this. Could you tell me what it is, what I'm about to do with it, and why?
Yep, so our first test is a test called exhaled nitric oxide, and effectively what we're trying to measure is when you breathe out, you'll breathe out a small number of particles that are basically nitric oxide particles. And those particles are as a result or a byproduct of inflammation inside your airways. Okay. And effectively by doing this test, we get to know how much inflammation you've got in your airway. Right,
it's fairly simple then.
Okay, so to do this test, all you're gonna do is pop this in your mouth.
Yeah.
Do a nice big deep breath in through it. Cloud will rise up on the screen, and as you start to breathe out, the cloud starts to go along the screen. And basically what you're going to do is as you're breathing out, just at a nice steady rate, you're going to breathe out for about 10 seconds and the cloud's going to go along the screen. And that's it. And then it's just a nice steady breath out. That's it. In the middle. That's it. Hold it there. Perfect. 5 more seconds. Failed the test.
Right. I'm not very good at this, am I? So 17 parts per billion.
Yep.
That doesn't sound like a lot.
No, it's not a lot. And what we sort of say, our sort of normal range for exhaled nitric oxide is anything sort of below 25 is sort of in a sort of a good range. But even having a low level of nitric oxide doesn't necessarily rule out asthma or exercise-induced asthma.
No.
So that's why we need to do the test. But it might be that there's different types of exercise-induced asthma, and if you have it, it might mean you just got a low exhaled nitric oxide. So when you do this, you can pop this in your mouth and just have a few relaxed breaths with it in your mouth, and then one big deep breath in, smash out the air as hard and as fast as you can for as long as you can. So you keep going to go until you can't get more air out. Once you get to that point, I want you to breathe back in hard and as fast as you can as well with your mouth.
Oh, right,
around
okay.
that as well. So we're going to go max out to empty and then max into full.
Okay.
And then relax.
Yeah.
All right? All the way, 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 and nice big deep breath in. Good. Perfect. So you can see your results here. So there's a couple of things we're interested in. One of them is how much air you can breathe out in 1 second.
Yeah.
The other is the total amount of air that you breathe out, and then the last one is the ratio between the two. So if we're looking at how much air you breathe out in total, you got 5.76 litres out in 1 second, which for your height and age is about 35% better than what it should be.
Right, okay.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah.
In terms of the
even taking into account I was an athlete.
Yeah, well, I mean, the actual these lung functions are sort of independent of being an athlete.
Okay.
So you just by training, you don't get bigger lungs, which some people might think I'm training, so I've got a better lung function. The actual it doesn't really affect your flow and volume. Okay. What the training will do will affect your ability to take oxygen out of your airways, but it won't necessarily affect these sort of measurements.
That's interesting. I never knew that before today. For a start.
There you go, yeah. All right. 5.76 was how much air you got out in 1 second. That's 35% better than what it should be. The amount of air you got out in total was 7.6 litres, which again, really big lungs. So that's because they're 49% bigger than what they should be for someone of your height and age.
Okay.
So again, that's really good. The peak flow again was 709, which was 21% better than what it should be for someone of your height and age. So at rest, your lung function looking really good. All right, so now it's time for the fun bit.
Right. This is the bit that I'm actually really nervous about.
So what we're going to try and do is, in a controlled way, we're basically going to try and induce what we call a bronchoconstriction. And the way we do that, and the most sensitive way of doing it, and the best way we found with athletes that work at a high level, is that we need to basically try and recreate the breathing rates that you do during the high intensity exercise. Now, you might think, well, the best way to do that would be to just do an exercise challenge. Yeah. The problem with that is we can't guarantee the environment on the day, and we can't guarantee that maybe you push yourself as hard as you can. Okay. So this is a little bit more of a standardized way of just trying to recreate that. And so what that means is we're going to ask you to breathe for 6 minutes. Yeah. Breathe in about as hard as you can. Yeah. And you're going to breathe in air that's around about 2% humidity, so very, very dry. So it's not going to fit, and it's a little bit cold. Yeah. Okay. And so basically you're going to essentially give your lungs a big dose of dry air. Once you've done 6 minutes of hard work, then we're going to measure your lung function again, 3 minutes after you finished, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. And we're going to see whether your lung function changes or not. So here we go. So 3, 2, 1, let's go. It's a little bit faster breaths. That's it, real big, strong, aggressive breaths. Perfect, lovely, really good. That's it, just deal with that dry air. It's not very comfortable to start off with, just get through that dryness. Big, strong breaths, it's fantastic. Top effort, keep pushing. Come on, 1.5 minutes to go, come on, big effort. Good stuff, as much as you can shift, last 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and you can stop there. Good stuff. Lovely.
Okay.
You all right?
I'll say if I'm asthmatic right now, yeah.
Excellent. You feel okay?
I feel okay.
Yeah? Good, just relax. I'm not going to do anything now for 3 minutes, so just take your time. Do you want to get a drink? Okay, so you feel okay?
I feel okay, yeah. I feel like I'm about to absorb some information that might change my life.
Yeah, so what we've basically done there, we've measured your lung function at rest, and we've demonstrated at rest it looks really healthy. And the amount of information inside your airways is sort of within normal boundaries. Yeah. And then what we're trying to do is try to provoke a sort of a mild asthma response in a nicest kind of way. Yeah. By getting you to breathe for 6 minutes, breathing really cold, dry air, and we got you to really push your lung function and its capabilities during that time. And then we measured lung function up to 10 minutes after you finished that challenge. And what we demonstrated was, if we look at the amount of air you breathe out in 1 second, you've gone from about 5.76 litres down to 5.3 litres, which is about an 8% change in your lung function. Now, if we're looking to sort of use our criteria in terms of that sort of meeting diagnostic criteria for exercise-induced asthma, we'd be looking for your FV1 to drop 10% at 2 time points, so 2 measurements, 2 consecutive measurements after you finished the hyperventilation. So at the moment, off that test, there's not any strong indication that there's any exercise-induced asthma at the moment.
No.
One of the caveats to this is the fact that there's not one perfect test for asthma, so we've given you a big dose of dry air. Yeah. And that maybe makes us confident that if you're exercising in cold, dry environments, that you're probably not going to have an asthmatic issue, but we can't rule out issues linked to pollen or high pollution or when you get chest infections and those sort of things. Okay. But it's pretty clear indication that just generally if you're exercising hard, you're not likely to be at too much risk of exercise-induced asthma from this test.
So, that comes as a surprise. According to today's tests, I am not suffering from exercise-induced asthma, something that I've been led to believe I've had for over 20 years. Maybe it's the fact that at the time of filming, I've had 2 weeks rest and my training volume is now 25% of what it used to be, meaning the levels of inflammation simply aren't there. What's more likely though, is that my asthma isn't exercise-induced at all.
So the next bit, what we've done, so obviously we've done this bit, but I think what would be interesting, just to confirm that we don't get any what sort of big dilation in your airway, is to give you some inhaler. Okay. Measure your inhaler. Sorry, get you to take your inhaler, then measure your lung function about 10 minutes after you've taken that, because then that would just again confirm to us that you're not obstructed at rest. Yes. It doesn't look like you are, but you never know. So, okay. And it also maybe demonstrate to everyone that actually taking an inhaler doesn't give you super lungs.
Yeah, it proves that you can't go past your own personal 100%.
Exactly. All right.
It's one of the myths we'd like to dispel here as well.
Yeah. So let's do one more set just after you take an inhaler, just to see if we're getting any massive improvement after you take an inhaler in your lung function.
Yeah, 10 minutes after.
Yeah, 10 minutes after.
Right.
It was a 5.76 before we started, isn't it? It's at 5.7.
Right, okay.
Now.
So does that or not imply that the inhaler helped that tiny bit?
You could have been sat here for you know, but it hasn't taken you past resting levels.
No, crucially.
Yeah. So I mean, what generally tends to happen when people take that sublingual inhaler is you might get a very, very, very small dilation that might improve your lung function up to maybe 0.1 or 0.2 of a litre. Yeah. But actually, in terms of what that does to actually the ability to ventilate air is nothing.
Yeah. Wow, I think it's safe to say I was not expecting that to be the outcome of today's tests. I'd like to say a big thank you to Dr. John Dickinson for taking the time to spend with us today and to talk all things asthma. I've certainly learned a lot about whatever breathing struggles I've personally been having, and I'm clearly going to have to investigate this further, as despite having had 2 weeks rest, today's tests really should have shown up if I had exercise-induced asthma. If you enjoyed this video, give us a big thumbs up, and if you do have any stories about asthma you'd like to share with us yourself, drop them in the comments below, and if you'd like to see more videos on health, click over here.